Namaste, everyone. We're so happy to be with you all today, and I want to give a special greeting to our dear friend Mansi, who's watching, who's recovering from surgery. We're so happy that it's gone so well. As Jyotish mentioned in his very beautiful guided meditation, Master's statement about the center of the universe, I want to elaborate a little bit on that story. For those of you who recall, it's from the expansive chapter in Autobiography of a Yogi, where it's called An Experience in Cosmic Consciousness. And in this chapter, Yoganandaji, who has just been with his guru Sri Yukteswarji for not very long in his ashram, and he was he was still going by his given name Mukunda. And he was trying to meditate in one of the upper rooms of the ashram, and Sri Yukteswar, who broached no foolishness, called him Mukunda and to come down, and Master resisted and thought, oh no, I'm meditating. And then Sri Yukteswar called again, Mukunda, come down. And Master said, sir, can't you see that I'm meditating? And Sri Yukteswar called, I know how you're meditating, with your thoughts scattered like dry leaves before the wind. He said, come down. And shamefacedly, Yoganandaji came down, and Sri Yukteswar said, I have a special gift for you today. And he touched him lightly, the touch of the Guru, which is all liberating and all transforming. And he touched him lightly on the chest. And our Guruji went into cosmic consciousness, and he describes it so beautifully, very similar to the expansive guided meditation that Jyotish led us through. And he talked about how his vision expanded so that it was 360 degrees, and they kept getting larger and larger till he saw the entire created universe, everything, as the lights, like the lights of a city twinkling in the distance. And then his consciousness expanded even further. And then this was the statement Jyotish referred to. Master said, I realized that all of creation was a point of intuitive perception within the human heart. That statement alone can be our key to unlock the mystery of Maya and the mystery of our own true self as one with God. And so we need to understand that when we want to live more from within, that is our nature. It's our nature to live from that center within us. That's the nature of all creation. But the world we live in draws us away from that center. We live in a very restless time. Technology has been a great blessing, but it also has brought the dilemma of outwardness, of being connected with your cell phone and your iPad and your computer and all the social media that we're all familiar with. And so there are two aspects about living more from within. One is to find your own center within, and the second part, once you've found it or begin to experience it, to find that place from within yourself from which you respond to everything in the world around you. So first, how do we begin to discover that self within? It's, of course, there are two directions we can take with it. One is to begin cutting off from all the external things, to find time in your life every day where you disconnect. You say, okay, I've connected, I've done my job, I've visited with my friends, but now I have to visit with my one true eternal friend, and that's the indwelling Lord within you. And by doing that, you're able to find that space within yourself. And when we can do that, we find this deep, refreshing quality very often when you meet people who have lived an inward life. And you see this a lot in the older generation in India, that there's a natural centeredness, a natural grace, a natural peace. And there also, they retain a youthful vibration, a youthful air around them, because they're resting in their own self. As Ananda Ma put it, I live in a portable paradise. And so to find that time, find that space to begin experiencing your own inner self. At first it may feel like a place of loneliness, but if you go beyond that, you realize that you'll never be lonely, that there's always that divine friend with you that you carry everywhere. And, excuse me, so that's the beginning of it. But really the most important aspect of discovering your inner self is the daily practice of meditation. Without that, our inner self is an elusive quality, because we're in a constant battle. The world is pulling us out. The world is saying, buy me, eat me, befriend me. And then our soul is saying, no, I want to find that stillness, the eternal self within. And so without meditation, we don't have the ability to discover ourself within, our inner center, that living presence within. So we urge you to, if you do already have a practice of meditation, try to meditate more and better. If you haven't yet started meditating, then please, I urge you, learn how to meditate. It'll be the best thing you can do for your health, happiness, prosperity, and joy in life. And then once we begin discovering that self within, then we go out into the world. And as we say, the world is a perfect equation, let's put it that way. It's perfectly balanced so that whatever we have within, the world tries to draw us equally in the opposite direction. And so the challenge then is to respond to everything that happens, the angry boss, the unruly children, the hostile colleague, the vegetable seller who tries to cheat you. Everything that happens, you respond from your own center. You are in charge of your ability to respond. So often you hear people say, oh, well, this happened to me, and what could I do? What could I do? We are the rulers of our own universe if we know how to live from within ourselves. And then we become a cause in our own life, not just an effect. We become the determining energy. So all those things that we mentioned, the unruly children, or the stove that blows up, or the angry boss, all of those things that happen, yes, we can respond in an angry or frustrated or hostile way, but we don't have to. We can choose how we respond. We can choose to respond from that center within us, which is profoundly peaceful, profoundly harmonious, profoundly accepting of everything that happens. Yoganandaji, our beloved guru, has one of my favorite quotes that he said was, resign yourself to the infinite love within you. Resign yourself to the infinite peace within you. And so it isn't run after and grab it, but resign yourself, accept, reflect inward, and you will find that you can respond to every one of life's situations with a great sense of peace, with a great sense of love. And then the more we do that, the more you create an aura around you that nothing in the world can touch. I remember many years ago when Swamiji Kriyananda asked Jyotishji and me to help start an ashram in the city of San Francisco. And we had been living in our ashram in Northern California for 10 years at that time. And I really did not want to move to San Francisco, but Swamiji asked us, and we said, of course we'll do this. And so we moved there and started an ashram, taught classes in yoga and meditation, Yoganandaji's teachings. And Swamiji came down for the first 2 months. He also lived there, and he gave many classes to draw students, to help us draw people to move into the ashram, live in the ashram. And then it was time for him to leave, and we were going to stay there on our own. And the night before he left, he gave us a very good lesson. He said, well, let's celebrate. Let's go out. This is my last night that I'll be here, and we'll go out and have a nice dinner, and maybe we'll go see a movie together. So all those things happened. We found a suitable movie that was uplifting, but we didn't pay close attention to where the movie theater was located and what time we would be getting out. And so it was a Saturday evening, and we got out, and it was late. It was 11 or 12, and it was in a very bad part of town. And so we were having to walk, and our car was parked many blocks away. So we had to walk through this very, let's just say, unsattvic streets of San Francisco. And there were people there that we would not normally mix with. But Swamiji, there were a group of about 10 of us, and Swami was at the head of the group. And it was like he was the prow of a ship. And he just walked centered in his heart with his aura of peace and joy. And it was like we were breaking through the sea of Maya. And we just walked untouched by any of those things. And because he was so centered within himself. And that was his parting gift to us, because we remained in San Francisco for another 2.5 years, teaching and building our ashram, building the work there. And I never, ever in that time felt uncomfortable living in a big city, because he had showed me the secret. If you're centered within yourself, if you're centered in peace and joy, nothing can touch you. So these are a few thoughts of how we can stay centered in ourselves and the importance of living. And now Jyotishji will share some words with you as well.
You know, there are really two great secrets to life. And if we can work on these two things, we will find that life really, really changes for us. The first is to understand that we can control and choose how we react to things, so that whatever happens, we have a degree of control over not the thing, but our reaction to the thing. And I'll expand on that, but first let me also say what the second thing is. So the first is that we can control our actions, and the second is that we have a degree of control over our thoughts, and especially where we concentrate our thoughts. Because energy is going to follow concentration. It's always that way. But let me talk about this control over reactive process, because one could say that all of yoga, and especially Kriya Yoga, is designed to teach us to control the reactive process. So think of the spine, as we did in the visualization, the meditation that we did, as a river of energy. And that river, because it's made up of energy, not of water, but energy can flow very quickly. It can flow at the speed of light. And that energy in the spine can either move up or move down. And according to how we react to things, that energy moves up or moves down. And it does so very, very quickly. The more powerful our reaction is, the more powerfully the energy moves. If our reaction is positive, it moves up and it expands. And if our reaction is negative, it moves down and it contracts. And so everything, if you could observe yourself today, just watch yourself going through the process, even, well, let's say tomorrow, that after you go to sleep tonight, that if you could observe yourself waking up in the morning, right when you wake up, you're going to start the reactive process again. Some people are going to say, oh, great, it's a wonderful day. And others are going to say, oh no, I don't want to get up yet. Go away. I turn that alarm off. Don't make me get up. And so right away, that reactive process starts. So if tomorrow morning you can control that first reactive element of how you greet the day, Swamiji wrote a beautiful thing. He said, today is my friend. Let's enjoy it together. And so today is your friend. Tomorrow when you wake up, that day is going to be your friend. And you can choose to have a good time in that day. But if you control your reaction to things, then you can always send that energy up. You can choose to send that energy up. And when you do so, you will experience more and more peace and uplifted consciousness and eventually joy. If you can take the reactive process in the heart and send the energy to the kutastha, the point between the eyebrows, this is the center of joy. And if you can do that, then everything will bring you some element of joy. Now, why would I say everything? There are obviously things that people go through that are seemingly negative. Maybe we get sick, maybe we get injured, or maybe we lose something that's precious to us. Those things seem obviously negative. But if we can react to those negative experiences as something that is positive, that there's a reason that we're having those experiences, that those experiences don't come randomly, they come as a gift from God. So let's take illness, that if when we get ill, we think of that illness as a gift from God, not something negative, then that acceptance of it and the peace that we find in that acceptance brings us inner freedom. And so a negative thing can be turned into a positive thing, just as a positive thing often can be turned into something negative. For instance, if we all of a sudden got a great deal of wealth, perhaps we win the lottery, or a relative leaves us a lot of money. Well, that seems, what a wonderful thing. What a great thing. Now I'm going to be so happy. I've got this money. I can do things. But if we use that money in the wrong way, if we use it to become lazy, or use it for increasing our sensual pleasures, increasing our desire for possessions, if we use it in some way that's contractive, then that apparently good thing is actually going to be negative for us. Swamiji said, and this was very, very interesting to me, he said that we can always determine whether something is good karma or bad karma by this one question. Does it bring us closer to God or farther away from God? Does it bring us closer to our own true self or push us out? And make us think that the things of the world outside of ourselves are going to give us happiness. So good karma is always that which brings us closer to God. And if we can see that then the outer circumstances that happen to us are really neutral, it's our reactive process that brings us closer to God or farther away from God. If we can see that, then we have the key to eternal happiness. I very much appreciated something that Swami Jayaji said one time. He was giving a satsang or a class, and after the class he was answering some questions. And someone asked, as is very often asked, have you had spiritual experiences? Meaning, do you levitate? Have you experienced samadhi and so on? And Jayaji said, no, I can't say that I have had any spiritual experiences. And then he paused, he said, or spiritual powers. I think the real question was, do you have spiritual powers? And Jayaji said, no, I can't say I have spiritual powers. And then he paused, he said, but, I have developed one power, and that's the power to choose to be happy, or not to choose to be not happy. He said, I realize that I have that power. He said, I don't always use that power, but I realize that I have it. Now, the ability to choose to be happy is worth more than all the money in the world, because for you could have all the money in the world and still be unhappy. And then you would constantly think, well, what more? If it isn't money, then it must be something else. It must be a relationship, or it must be fame, So you're always outside of yourself, thinking that happiness lies outside of yourself. And so the greatest treasure of all is the ability, the realization, and then the ability to follow through with the realization that you can choose to be happy no matter what circumstance comes. So controlling that reactive process is one of the two keys to eternal happiness. Now, Kriya Yoga is extremely important in this, because Kriya Yoga teaches us to take the control of the flow of energy or of prana, and to take prana and bring it under the control of the concentration of our mind. Remember I said that that energy always moves up or down, and it moves up if we're reacting positively and down if we're reacting negatively. Well, Kriya teaches us to take control of that energy and to consciously move it up. And so we consciously are able to bring that energy to the Kutastha, the center of joy. And when we can do that, everything in life becomes joyful. And as Patanjali said, that when we are able to neutralize the likes and dislikes, yogas chitta vritti nirona, when we're able to neutralize the whirlpools of chittva, or likes and dislikes, the primordial feeling quality as Master called it, when we neutralize that, we automatically go into a state of union with God. And then he says the seer at that time rests within his own self. And when we rest within our own self, then our experiences of joy, of peace, of freedom, of our union with God. The next thing that Patanjali says, at all other times, the seer is disturbed by the reactive process, or by the worldly pluses and minuses, the reactions of the world. And so we have that choice to bring our reactive process under our control. we also have the choice of where to focus our mind. Now, we can't always control the little random thoughts that flow in the mind. It's very difficult to control those. In the Gita, Arjuna laments to Krishna. He says, Krishna, how can one control the mind? It is more difficult to control my thoughts than to control the very wind. And the secret of that, the interpretation of that, is that thoughts, the wind represents breath, air, and thoughts are controllable by pranayama, again, Kriya Yoga. And so if you don't have Kriya Yoga, then please, please, I would urge you to go through the self-discipline that prepares yourself to receive Kriya initiation, and then once you have it, to practice it daily, because it, more than anything else, is the key to your happiness. And if you can, through the practice of controlling the mind, through the practice of controlling the energy in the heart and the reactive process, if you can do those two things and keep the consciousness here at the point between the eyebrows as you go through the day, then you will find that you are the king of the realm of your consciousness, of the realm of your life, and everything that you're looking for outside yourself, you'll be able to begin to find that it is never going to be found by achieving this or attaining that or possessing whatever. It is always going to be found by these two great secrets: controlling your reactions and controlling your thoughts. And that control is a God-given quality. And so one could sum up the whole of the spiritual path as controlling the mind and controlling the reactive process. When we do that, we will also then realize that we are part of everything that is. May God bless you all.